Welcome to This Week in Buffalo Sports. I'm Stu Boyar along with Tony Fiorello and Bud Bailey. Today's show is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, and Dan Chacha Personal Injury Attorneys. And the only topic really this week is the Buffalo Bills taking on the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to go back a little bit, look at the Denver game before we get into the Baltimore game. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for 6:30 Sunday night to see that game. Who was nervous when Denver scored on their opening drive last Sunday? Anybody?
I was a little surprised because I thought Denver would suffer from the "it's great to be here" syndrome. And I figured, okay, they'll come in and it's a playoff game and they're happy to be there and that'll be that. And we got that for the final 55 minutes.
Yes.
But the long touchdown pass was like, whoa, well, what's that going to do to give them a shot in the arm that they can say, hey, maybe we can play with these guys?
I was very nervous because I'm always very nervous watching the Bills play. But what I liked as the half went on, the Bills started dominating the line of scrimmage, and I just knew that they were going to be okay. But I was very nervous when they completed that touchdown pass.
Yeah. Remember last week when I said that I thought that this was going to be the toughest wild card team that they have faced in the last 5 years or so?
Yes.
Well, the first half ended up being close. Second half, not so much. So, but like I said, Bo Nix played generally pretty well. Given the fact that he is a rookie, but he doesn't really play like one. And, the Bills ended up figuring out a way, and they ended up pulling away in the second half and got the win.
Who's concerned about the Bills' special teams giving up that fake punt? Anybody? Everybody?
Yep.
Concern? You watch for it, but sometimes you just tip your hat, as Ted Sater used to say.
Okay.
Way back when, you just say, hey, that was a pretty imaginative call there, and sometimes you're going to catch them, and they're human beings out there. So,
How do they make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, watch the fake.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's really a personnel issue or if it's really more of a coaching issue, because they've had a lot of mental mistakes really, and I don't know if it's just the players not having enough experience playing on special teams or if it's just the coach not pounding it into them. So Sean McDermott, I think, is going to have to take a long, hard look at that area of their team once the season ends.
It's funny. I was just thinking back to you remember the Denver loss on the Monday
Oh,
night game,
yeah.
where they had too many men on the field at the end of the game.
Yes.
And McDermott said, we've practiced this play constantly. You get the punt, the field goal unit out on defense in the final seconds in a hurry, because you have to do it in those circumstances to get him out there. And we wind up getting 12 men, and we practice, and it still goes wrong. And sometimes it just happens.
Right.
Maybe it is a Matthew Smiley problem.
Well, you're dealing with human beings, and human beings always make mistakes, and those are high-pressure situations generally.
Absolutely.
So, fortunately, they won the game handily. And now let's start looking ahead to Baltimore. In a way, if you're interested in MVP races, you can't. This game will not determine the MVP. I think those votes have already been cast. So both players, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, have had absolutely fabulous years. They're fun to watch. I thought, Bud, you had a great idea about MVP, and let's hear your take on that.
I think there's a key difference in most valuable player and player of the year. And this applies to any sport. And you can look at other instances where you say, who's the player of the year? All right, it's probably the guy with the best stats in any sport. But the most valuable player usually goes to a team in contention, because the old line is they could have finished last without him. Remember Andre Dawson was on a last-place team with the Cubs, had a fine year, and won the MVP for the Cubs, and I think it was his first year after leaving the Expos. But he said, they finished last. How valuable could he have been?
Boy, that's really kind of unfair, but makes sense.
Yeah. And if the idea is to win games, who's the guy that's done the most to win games. To me, Jackson probably has better statistics.
He does.
Than, by most standards. And I know statistics or whatever you make of them. But, and certainly Jackson is valuable. But Allen comes in this year without Diggs. The wide receivers, there's no stars out there. Cook has improved as a running back, obviously, breaks 1,000 yards. But without Allen, this team is 5-11 or 12 or however many, they play, somewhere in that range, because he's just picked up the team around him and lifted his game because he's had to. He's been a lot more selective. He's cut down the turnovers this year.
Keep that up for 3 more games,
right.
hopefully.
And maybe that's because he's not relying on the supporting cast as much as with Diggs gone, but he seems very cautious and is making the right plays and has done so all season. And credit to him for realizing that and picking up his game. So to me, I think Allen's got a real good case that he's more valuable. Now, whether that translates into the trophy, depending on how people judge that award and how they should vote for it, that's another story.
Well, hopefully you're right and people see it that way. You see it that way?
I do, yeah. I mean, we know Lamar does have better statistics than he had the prior year when he won the MVP. But, I mean, just looking at the impact that Josh Allen has had on the Bills, and we know they wouldn't be anywhere near where they are without Josh. But the whole talk about most valuable player, it's become a real political discussion, and it's gotten annoying to be completely honest. The only thing that really matters, Stu, is the Vince Lombardi Trophy. So that's all that really matters. But if we really need to try to figure out who should be the MVP, just split it right down the hair. Just like in 2003 when Peyton Manning and Steve McNair both got it. Just give them both. Just give them both the MVP.
I like Bud's argument better.
Used to.
In week 4, the Bills got manhandled by Baltimore. Now, both these teams are different since then. And I don't put any stock in that game at all because I tossed it out immediately afterward. Well, really, I mean, the Bills were missing some key performers. It's not an excuse. Derrick Henry ran him over. He's been an issue for this team before he got to Baltimore. Yeah. And he's obviously a big key to this game, and obviously he plays into the MVP race, I think, because in as good as Cook is, the Bills don't have a Derrick Henry. But they're different teams now than they were back in week 4. How different? What's different? And, a lot of people are saying Baltimore's the best team in the league. I'm not, because to me it's still Kansas City. They only lost one game all year. I throw out that Denver game, and they're still the champs, and somebody has to beat them. And but some are saying, oh, Baltimore's the team to beat, this, that, the other thing. I think that the Bills are getting a little bit of that short shrift nationally because this is a really good football team.
Yeah. The one thing is we know that, obviously Buffalo was missing their entire second level of their defense. The last time out, obviously it was Cam Lewis, Balen Spector, and Dorian Williams in there at the time, missing Taron Johnson, Milano, and Terrell Bernard at that time. We know we're gonna have them back, but it's going to be a very, very fascinating matchup on both sides of the ball, really, because we know that McDermott and Bobby Babich are going to have to cook up a great game plan to stop Baltimore because, if the conundrum facing Baltimore is how much speed do you want to have out in the field and how much muscle do you want to have out there, because if you put too much muscle out there, like in the form of, a 4-3, if you want to have Milano, Bernard, Dorian Williams out there, if you have too much of that out there, Lamar Jackson's going to run right past you. If you have too much speed out there with Taron Johnson out there and playing nickel like the Bills regularly do, then Derrick Henry's just going to run right through you. So it's quite the conundrum for McDermott and Babich, and
it's thunder and lightning.
Absolutely it is. So it's very much a pick your poison sort of game plan, I think, for McDermott and Babich.
And it's been pretty well publicized how Allen is more likely to run in the playoffs.
Yes.
And Jackson's the same way. And Jackson is an incredible runner. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what he would have been like 30 years ago as just as a halfback only.
Well, I think Sean McDermott is usually very, very good, well, all the time, but especially the second time around. I think this coaching staff, when something like that happened to them against Baltimore, they're very good the next time at coming up with a game plan. That said, it comes down to what it always comes down to, who's going to control the line of scrimmage. And that's what was so encouraging to me about the Denver game. The Bills controlled the line of scrimmage. They had the ball for like 40 minutes. And, can they do that against the Ravens? Probably not, but you never know. They did it against Seattle, too. They have that ability.
And that's the one thing that a lot of people have criticized the Bills' defense for the last several years, Their defensive line not showing up in the postseason. And against a team like Baltimore, that's one thing that definitely needs to continue to play well. That happened last week against Denver. Will it happen against Baltimore? We'll see.
Well, you better be real careful, because if you overrun Lamar, you're getting a big play coming at you. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more on the Bills and the Ravens.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Education has power. Binghamton University students discover it, apply it, unleash it. Unleash your education today.
Just results.
Your life can change in an instant after an injury. You need a trusted partner at your side. Hi, I'm Dan Chacha. At Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys, we're here to help you navigate the challenges you'll face. Our dedicated team fights tirelessly for your rights, ensuring you get the compensation you deserve. Don't worry, Chacha's got you. Call Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys today for a free consultation. Your injury is our priority.
Call 648-3030. Just results.
Western New York Immediate Care. Since 2005, our hometown urgent care walk-in clinics have been committed to providing the highest quality urgent care for the Western New York community, with 4 convenient locations in Amherst, Buffalo, Depew, and Orchard Park. We are open every day, including holidays. Walk-ins welcome or reserve a time. We have on-site labs and x-rays, and you'll always see an in-person provider. Visit wnyImmediatecare.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Buffalo Sports. I'm Stu Boyar, along with Bud Bailey and Tony Fiorello. And, Bud, you said you wanted to make a point about the Ravens game, so the floor, in this case the table, is all yours.
Here's the thing that I would guess a lot of people around here are worried about. You remember how the Bills-Ravens first game went, where
Yes.
the Ravens chewed them up. I watched the Pittsburgh-Cleveland playoff game.
So did I.
Same game.
Yes.
Baltimore came in and just ran the ball down their throats, and Jackson's running more.
Yes.
And that's Pittsburgh's a playoff team, noted for physical defense and pretty good. They didn't finish particularly well, but they're still a relatively good team. And it's like, okay, they're still doing this. What's going to be different? And, yeah, the personnel might be different, but that possibility that the Ravens are on that roll again where they just are going to ram it down your throats, I think that's got everybody a little bit scared in the back of their mind. I'm not saying the game has to go that way, and we've certainly seen turnarounds. But, boy, at halftime I was saying, like, there's got to be a way to get Houston into Buffalo next week rather than these guys. I don't know if I want to see these guys.
Well, I also watched the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, the first game. And whatever Pittsburgh did was the formula to beat Baltimore. And that's when Pittsburgh was playing better. My take on that is, yes, very fair. I've thought about that. The first game, if you think about it, the Bills had a touchdown and a score, and then another stop. They had a touchdown, a stop, and they were beginning to get back into the game. They had just about taken the crowd out of it when they called that ridiculous trick play that almost got Josh Allen killed. From that moment on, the blowout was on because the Bills were about to make that a game. At least that was my feeling. So your point about Pittsburgh is all true. Bills are a much better team. And the Ravens have to stop the Bills too. And to your point about the defensive line, it's been an issue for quite some time. The Bills, what they really need is a Myles Garrett, someone like that. And hopefully Ed Oliver plays out of his mind and the rest of his guys along that defensive line. But don't
nowhere 10 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, that'd be nice. but don't forget, I really believe this. The Ravens have to defend the Bills too, and that's not easy. So you were going to say something.
The one thing about the Ravens defense is we know they can be pretty complex to stop. You know, it's been virtually the same system. Really, even if you want to go back to 2000 during that historic defense that they had back then, you know, they do a lot of zone blitzes, a lot of overload blitzes, and it involves a lot of communication on the back end and up front. So, and they struggled with that really the first 3 months of the year. They had a lot of communication issues on the back end, which is why they really struggled stopping the pass. But once, I think it was around week 11 or week 12, when Baltimore decided, okay, we've been using Kyle Hamilton in the slot. They benched Marcus Williams on the back end, moved Hamilton to safety. They took Marlon Humphrey, moved him into the slot, and then started Nate Wiggins, their first-round pick from back in April. And once they made those moves, their defense has gotten much, much better. And plus, they also brought back Dean Pease out of retirement too to help coach their defense along with Zach Orr. And the one thing I think, if you're Joe Brady in this game, is the way to attack them is to try and do a lot before the snap. A lot of
motion,
a lot of shifts, a lot of motions. Make Baltimore communicate, test them, make sure that they can just try and see if they really have fixed those issues on the back end, and try and force them to communicate and see if they can try to stop Buffalo.
Well, my question is, the Ravens very narrowly beat Kansas City in the opener, but have they played any offense this season that's as close to the Bills, except when, again, I'm throwing out that Bills-Ravens game. I mean, they played Cleveland. Cincinnati has a great offense. I mean, people can score points on this team, and the Bills have the offense to do it. Plus, the game is here. So the communication is going to be tougher because that crowd is going to be jacked up.
Yep, absolutely.
So
defense, less of a factor, obviously.
Well, but, you know.
Offense, yes.
The Bills' defense has a huge challenge in front of them. They've got to find a way. You can't let Lamar escape, and you can't let Derrick Henry run over you, around you, through you, because he's capable of doing all of it. So, you know, it's a big, big challenge. Believe it or not, I'm very optimistic. I'm usually not, and I couldn't tell you why.
You're usually Debbie Downer.
Yeah, well, I was really concerned about the Denver game for all those reasons that you had listed, plus Sean Payton. Super Bowl winning coach. John Harbaugh has been a great coach for a long time. The thing I do like about John Harbaugh is that there are a couple of at least one game that I'm remembering where Baltimore scored it wasn't this year. It was a couple of years ago. They scored a touchdown and they went for 2 to win it, and they lost the game. And I thought, you know, good for him. He's got the gumption to do that. And in my mind, I'm playing this game over, and it's like, well, if it comes down to that and they go for 2 for the win, hopefully they lose.
John Harbaugh pays attention to his analytics group. I can tell you that much. He's very analytically minded, and he'll go for it.
Well, you know,
when the situation calls for it.
One of the other things I was thinking driving over here today was one of the best things that's happened in professional football is more and more teams are going for it on 4th down. It helps to have a quarterback like Josh or Lamar or be a Dan Campbell type in Detroit with Jared Goff and have the confidence in your team to go. Now, you have to be careful because, like, Campbell got burned in the championship game last year, but the coach has to know this game situation, his team, where it is, and the impact of not getting it and leaving those points on the field.
Now, that said, and you're right, because the numbers have always shown that going for it on 4th and 1 is generally a winning proposition, maybe not in every situation. But personally, I hate the tush push. Not the name, but the play, because it reminds me of the flying wedge.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
From 1908, where everybody just crowded around the ball carrier and made a human wedge into the other teams, and people got clobbered. Yeah. And that it seems against the principles of football as we know it to just throw a bunch of 350-pound guys together and push against the other and have a tug-of-war sort of thing.
Well, isn't that kind of football?
Not to that. Not in,
I think Bud looks at that as rugby.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It's not. There's no,
the spirit of the rules, like Marv said about the sugar huddle.
There's just something odd about it to me.
Okay.
And again, I don't know what the injury rate on those plays are. I mean, for Allen to just hop over the pile and take the first down, fine. But it's been adapted the last few years, starting with Philly, and it's just kind of ugly to me.
That's fair. I can see that. Put it this way: I like it when my team doesn't and gets the first down,
yeah.
And I don't like it when the other team does. I don't really have a take on that per se. It's just there, and just have to deal with it. You know
how you'd fix it.
Change the rules. I mean, did you see Deion Dawkins drag James Cook an extra 10 yards against Denver last year?
Yep.
Now is that the same thing?
I mean,
something similar
from behind to carry. I don't. It's a little awkward.
Yeah. Well, until the NFL
does something.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, this is a league that took years to determine what is a catch, and I'm still not sure they know exactly what it is.
I don't think they have.
And they still haven't figured out pass interference or roughing the passer or,
Tough game to officiate.
It really is. And, who knows? To win a championship, you have to get some calls along the way, and you have to have some luck along the way, and you have to stay healthy.
And your quarterback has to be Brady, Mahomes. That helps.
Hopefully it's Allen.
We'll see who else adds to the list, if anyone.
Well, that'd be nice because that's obviously what all of us would like to see because we've been emotionally invested in this team for a long, long time. It's just, and the funny thing is the way sports are. Well, neither one of these teams turns the ball over a lot. They do force turnovers. The way sports are, we're expecting a big matchup with the quarterbacks, and it'll come at a different position, right? It's like. What I think the best line of the year came from Tony Romo when the Bills were playing the Chiefs. And he said something to the effect of, you got to go beat this team. You've got to go. He was talking about the fourth down where Allen made the big run, I think. You got to go beat them. You can't take the 3 because that'll allow them to come down the field and score a touchdown. So that, to me, is the big part of going for it on fourth down. It's maybe – and I don't know the analytics on this. The most important way to beat a team is go for it in those situations.
It's kind of a mindset.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly right. A mindset. We're going to impose our will. Okay, we're at that point. Predictions. Who you got?
Boy, I think it's a coin flip. And we can flip it any way you want. So. I mean, could the Bills edge him out just because of home field? Maybe, but to say I'm confident would not be fair.
Well,
I'm right on the fence here.
Want to pick a score?
Oh, 24-23.
Okay, that's fair.
A missed extra point because of the goal.
Oh, don't say that because Tyler. I mean, every time the Bills score a touchdown, I can't say it here, but I have a phrase that I use to encourage Tyler Bass to make the extra point. We'll just leave that out there.
Kicking a football Sunday is going to be like kicking rocks.
Yes, well, throwing it and catching it, right?
Yeah. Well,
okay. Tony?
I'll tell you what. I mean, we know Buffalo's had success against Baltimore in recent years, but the big difference was they had just Lamar. Now they have Derrick Henry, and that's a huge – I don't even know if I want to call it an X factor. It's just more of a – it's a huge it's a game changer, put it that way. I don't know I think all of us here would like to see Buffalo win, but am I confident in Buffalo winning? I'm not so sure, especially seeing what happened back in, what was it, week 4? That first Ravens game. I know that Buffalo was missing their second level of their defense back then, but I'm not so sure how much of a difference that's going to make. I mean, it's just a scary offense to try to match up with. Like I said, I think all of us here would like to see Buffalo win, but I think I got to go with Baltimore here. And Buffalo's got to prove that they can get over that second round hump. They haven't done it the last 3 years. I think I'm probably going to go Baltimore 31, Buffalo 24.
Well, certainly the Bills have stalled in the division round against Kansas City and Cincinnati, and despite the sustained success that they promised, Mr. Bean and Mr. McDermott, they have only reached one AFC championship game, and if it doesn't happen this year, who knows what the fallout will be. I am, believe it or not, like I said, I'm for whatever reason, I'm fairly confident, which is probably not a good thing for the Bills, but I'm going to say the Bills will find a way to win this game. And they're going to be points scored, whether or not, meaning snow, cold, whatever. I think they're going to score.
Clever.
Well, not by intent. I'm not that smart and honest. I'm going to say the Bills 31-30. And who knows? It just don't leave your TV set, especially in that fourth quarter, because we have two of the greatest quarterbacks probably in the history of the sport, and they do spectacular things. And both of them will do anything to win a football game. So once that game starts, don't leave the room to get a snack because you're going to see some spectacular stuff, and I'm picking the Bills.
I wonder what the no-show count would be. They don't release those anymore.
Yeah, they don't.
But
cold.
It's going to be cold,
Yeah.
and it's going to be on your 60-inch high-definition TV screen back home, and you wonder how many people will stay home for that. I know ticket prices aren't, shall we say, through the roof for this game, maybe for that reason, that there's not a huge demand to go to this game just because of the difficult. I mean, it's tough enough to go to a game with a new stadium under construction and all that, and standing outside and et cetera. But to throw in 8-degree weather, it's almost a chore to go there. It'd be interesting to see who stays home.
Two things. One, to your point, Stu, we hope you're right. But to your point, I mean, I was at the Bills-Patriots playoff game in 2021 when it was like 5 degrees at kickoff.
Josh's perfect game.
Yes, I was at that game, and I don't think that one had any problem selling out. So I don't think there should be an issue there. It's a big game. It'll still be cold. It's for the right to go to the AFC Championship against presumably Kansas City. But I think it'll be a good turnout.
Kansas City coming off the bye month.
Right. By the way, speaking of Kansas City, are we picking the other games?
We're going to take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll wrap up, and we'll pick the other games.
All right.
So we'll take a break and come back with our final thoughts and predictions.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Education has power. Binghamton University students discover it, apply it, unleash it. Unleash your education today.
Just results.
Your life can change in an instant after an injury. You need a trusted partner at your side. Hi, I'm Dan Chacha. At Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys, we're here to help you navigate the challenges you'll face. Our dedicated team fights tirelessly for your rights, ensuring you get the compensation you deserve. Don't worry, Chacha's got you. Call Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys today for a free consultation. Your injury is our priority.
Call 648-3030. Just results.
Western New York Immediate Care. Since 2005, our hometown urgent care walk-in clinics have been committed to providing the highest quality urgent care for the Western New York community, with 4 convenient locations in Amherst, Buffalo, Depew, and Orchard Park. We are open every day, including holidays. Walk-ins welcome or reserve a time. We have on-site labs and x-rays, and you'll always see an in-person provider. Visit WNYImmediatecare.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Buffalo Sports. Quick note, we're going to pick the games, but the Buffalo Stallions are coming back in the NPSL for the 2025 season. So stay tuned for that around wherever you can find information. That's exciting to have professional soccer. But back to professional football, we have other games. And let's start picking the other games. Let's go NFC first. Who's got Detroit and the Washington Commanders? Who you got?
I think Washington's Cinderella story ends now.
Okay.
Detroit's playing too well.
Yeah.
High scoring game?
Yeah. Washington they were kind of lucky to beat Tampa last week. I think Detroit's going to mop the floor with them. I really do. It's not even a contest.
Well, I don't know if they were lucky because Tampa fumbled and they took advantage of it. And they went for it on fourth down an awful lot. So I think that'll be a better game than people are expecting, but I do think Detroit will win. And then we have Philadelphia and the L.A. Rams. Who you got?
L.A. scares me. Stafford is as good a pure passer as there is. He's capable of beating anybody. The Rams playing their best football now, and they sure look good against Minnesota. They've got a puncher's chance. I might not pick them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if they won.
Yeah. I think that game's going to be closer than Detroit and Washington will be.
Yep.
And like to your point, Bud, I mean, the Rams have definitely gotten hot, recently since really because, the first 2 months of the year, they had a lot of injuries along their offensive line and their skill positions and whatnot. I mean, you have Stafford throwing to Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. You got Kyron Williams coming out of the backfield. And don't knock that young defensive line they got with Jared Verse and whatnot.
Why would I knock them?
Oh, I know. I'm just saying. I mean, I know they don't have Aaron Donald anymore, but they're pretty solid. Verse has had a really nice rookie year and whatnot. But I think Philadelphia is going to come away with it just because that they have. If it's not the Bills, they probably have the best offensive line in the NFL, and Barkley is just. He's having a monster year.
If Barkley jumps over another defensive end backwards, like he did earlier in the season, all bets are off.
Plus, you have Hurts and A.J. Brown and Goddard and Devontae Smith. I mean, that's a hard offense to stop.
I'm going to take the Rams.
Yeah.
I've always been a Matthew Stafford fan. I like the way I don't think they'll play another game like they played against the Bills for another 25 or 30 years. They were that good that day.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take the Rams. You got to have an upset in there somewhere, and that's my upset is the Rams.
I think the key factor in that game is the Rams secondary isn't all that great, and I think Philadelphia is going to be able to attack that real well with, like I said, with Hurts and Brown and Goddard. And
well, we'll see because
Smith.
that Rams defensive line will make them run for their lives. We'll see how they do against Barkley.
They could.
AFC, Houston at Kansas City. Who you got?
Assuming the Chiefs aren't rusty. I think I called it a month-long bye, and they haven't really played a game for 3 weeks. Once they come out and get their footing, I think they're going to handle the Texans pretty good. And a Chiefs team that's healthy again with new guys in the lineup and the bruises that's a pretty scary thought just on their track record.
Yeah.
Who you got?
The Chiefs they've won 3 Super Bowls, but I'm telling you, watching them this year is the most annoying thing to ever. It is. I mean, have you ever seen a team with a horseshoe stuck up their butt like them? I mean, we saw Minnesota 2 years ago when they were winning one-score games like crazy. The Chiefs, they've been even crazier than that. They're going to find a way to win by 3, and you'll probably see Mahomes running around, going like this, running around like, oh my God, we won. But you know they'll probably find a way to win. And plus they have the matchups pretty much under pat, down pat there between them and Houston. So I'd say probably the Chiefs by 3.
The close games are interesting in the sense that if you win a bunch of them, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the skill and having the smarts to win the close games. It's luck.
Yep.
You're doing teams a favor if you're better and they're hanging around you. So usually it catches up to you. And the Minnesota team from 2 years ago is the perfect example. They go in and lay an egg in the first round of the playoffs. But the Chiefs, that quarterback they have and the coach they have.
And the tight end.
Yeah, they've done some winning.
And Chris Jones.
Yeah, and
not to mention Spagnuolo.
And for a small sample size like the playoffs, it's hard to think they're going to stumble here. So they're clearly the favorites in any game they play from here on in.
I personally feel about Kansas City the way I used to feel about New England. Never pick against them.
Yeah.
I'm not picking the Houston Texans to go into Kansas City and knock them off. So if the Bills win, they'll have to go into KC and beat KC.
It's like betting against Brady and Belichick.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to be able to go against them. Go against Andy Reid and Mahomes. I wouldn't do it.
I don't
You
even.
guys don't have a sister in Kansas City,
Oh,
so that alters my perspective a bit.
Okay, that's fair. I don't think that game's going to be close. Once
No.
Kansas City figures it out and they get back and they shake off whatever quote unquote rust they might have. Thank you, Houston, for playing. It was nice to see you. Let's get on to the winner in Buffalo, Baltimore.
it was surprising to see Houston beat the Chargers last week. I mean, the Chargers basically beat themselves.
Well, they did because they only got 3 points in those first 2 drives. You got to score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Harbaugh had to go for it on the first 4th down. Go for it because you're leaving the door open, and the play of the game was Stroud picking up that fumble that's bouncing around, and he had a great game.
So many throws to the wrong colored shirts.
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Herbert threw more interceptions in that game than he had all season.
Well, the poor guy got pounded. I mean, they left
Yeah.
him out to dry. But anyway, hopefully next week at this time we're talking about another Bills win and a spot in the AFC Championship game, be it here or in Kansas City. Obviously, we'd prefer it here, but we'll see. A great weekend of NFL football coming up. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Bud. Thank you, our producer, Tim Gardner. Thanks most of all to you for watching. Have a good night, everybody.